Hello everybody and welcome back to Sweet and Sour Soccer, and we are back with yet another Premier League predictions video. Of course, game week 7 didn't go ahead last week, but I think we're still classing this as game week 8. And of course, we already know that out of the 10 fixtures that were expected to go ahead, only 7 of them will be taking place, of course, with everything happening for the Queen's funeral. But for those 14 teams that are still playing, it's another chance to get some points on the board and maybe pull a bit of a gap on those teams that aren't playing. So let's get straight into it. And we're going to start off with Aston Villa taking on Southampton. And of course, I think Steven Gerrard, probably one of the managers that really wouldn't have wanted this break. Of course, in the last fixture, big point against Manchester City. And to be honest, really unlucky not to win it. So I think having that week's break, I think they might have carried a bit of momentum into last week's game week should they have gone ahead. But before that, he was under quite a bit of pressure, weren't he, Steven Gerrard? And I think this will be a game where he really could do with, at the very least, getting a point, but probably getting a win just to further ease that pressure off on him. As for Southampton, again, another manager which towards the start of the season was under some pressure. And of course, we're not very far into the season, but his results have maybe pulled that back just a little bit. I think this is honestly going to be a very close game between the two teams. I think obviously Southampton are building on a good project. Villa fans feel the same about the project that Aston Villa are going through as well. I think this is going to be close, and I'm going to call it a draw. I am going to go a 1-1 draw in this fixture. Let's move on to Forest now, taking on Fulham. And obviously two teams which were promoted. And in the last prediction, obviously with Aston Villa and Steven Gerrard, I said Gerrard wouldn't have wanted this time, you know, the extra week without a game. I don't think the same could be said for Stephen Cooper. Of course, Steve Cooper, he's had to, you know, bring in a lot of players into that Nottingham Forest team. I think maybe this break might have helped him to maybe sort out that team a bit more, maybe get some time with them, get his style of play across to all these new players, but also maybe take a look at some of the players that he hadn't had too much time to look into, and maybe that could benefit them when they come at home to Fulham, obviously in this games week on Friday. Both these teams are playing. Fulham have started the season really well. Obviously, the sign of João Palhinha looks a really good signing for them, really doing well to dictate the play. And then you've obviously got Mitrovic banging in the goals, presenting that goal-scoring presence and that threat. So I think this is going to be another close game. I don't want to go for another draw, though. That's the problem. But I think I'm going to have to. I think it will be a draw between these two teams. I think there'll be goals. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. Fulham have been playing very well this season, but I think we're going to see Forest start to pick up now as their team become more integrated with each other. And, of course, the way that Steve Cooper wants to play. Let's talk about my team now. Wolves, and we've not got an easy task. We're taking on Manchester City. The one thing that you would say is the fact that Wolves are at home. And, of course, just a buzz of having Diego Costa around the place might give a bit of something. But, of course, we're not expecting Costa to play many minutes, if any. He's got 2 or 3 weeks to get up to fitness, which does mean it will probably be Jimenez or Hwang Hee-chan, which will lead the line in this clash. And for City, I mean, they've got the danger man, haven't they? Haaland potentially already looking like he could set a Premier League record. So much danger in that team. And because of that, even though I want to back my team, I simply can't. I can only see this going one way. Do I think Wolves will get a goal? Sadly not. And I don't think Wolves will get a battering, no. That's one thing I will say. Wolves, of course, got the best defence statistically in the league at the moment. So I am going to go for just a narrow 2-0 victory, which I would victory for Manchester City, which I would consider a narrow margin considering the way City have been playing. Coming on to obviously now another team that's got such a buzz around it, and you can really see why. Newcastle United, of course, in this gap between the fixtures, they've had to sort out an issue in getting in a goalkeeper because of their goalkeeper issues. Karius are back in the Premier League. Of course, lots of people will remember him from his time at Liverpool and how that ended not too well. But to be honest, he's a free agent. He's now been brought in. And I believe he didn't have a terrible time out in, obviously, where he went after Liverpool. But moving on to this game, of course, you know, you've got Bournemouth Still not solved the manager situation. I really thought we would have seen someone appointed. From what I've seen, it looks like Dyche is one of the people that Bournemouth are looking at. Would make sense, to be fair, because I think, you know, he has pulled off Premier League miracles, and I think keeping this Bournemouth team up would be a miracle. It's not had a lot of investment, and I think ultimately that's why Scott Parker obviously went. I can only see this game going one way, though, especially with Newcastle being at home. They've looked very impressive this season, and I do think I'm going to go for quite a big margin. I'm going to go for a 3-0 prediction. Newcastle United to get that win over Bournemouth. We come on to now Spurs taking on Leicester. And Spurs sitting quite nice in the table, but you still feel with Spurs that they've not quite got out of third gear. And I know this is a phrase that James sometimes does predictions on this channel, is the phrase that he's used himself, but I completely agree with what he's saying. You just feel that Spurs have got another couple of gears that could go up. You still think that there's some more to come from this Spurs team, but they're still sitting nice in their current position in the table. Coming on to a team where the same can't be said, Leicester City. Maybe this break might help Brendan Rodgers maybe get his team together, come out fighting, because they really need to come out fighting. Of course, in their last fixture, we saw them demolished by that Brighton team. Obviously, it was a Graham Potter's Brighton, but nonetheless, you know, 5-2 loss, conceding way too many, which was a regular theme last season as well. So maybe this time will help Brendan Rodgers. The question is, how much time has actually Brendan Rodgers got? Because to be honest, I don't think he's probably got too much time and too many more defeats he can pick up before the Leicester board giving him that chop. I can only see this going one way, if I'm being completely honest. So I think Spurs will get the victory. Harry Kane, not spoken about a lot, but he scored in every fixture apart from the opening day. I think he'll do the same. I think he'll get a goal here against a club that obviously he played on loan for, Leicester City. And I do think, Leicester, I'll give you a goal. I will give you a goal. I'll go for a narrow 2-1 victory to Spurs. Let's move on now to talking about Brentford versus Arsenal in a fixture which will be in the memories of Brentford fans in some delight. Of course, when we look back to the start, very first game of last season when Brentford came up, of course, they will remember this fixture well, getting that victory and shocking a lot of people, getting that victory against Arsenal. They now come up against an Arsenal team that is looking very different now. Of course, the signings of Zinchenko, Jesus, and they just look a different outfit in general. Granit Xhaka playing very well as well. Martinelli. Basically, this Arsenal team still currently sitting top of the table, and to be honest, deserve to be sitting top of the table the way that they've started out this season. But let's not write Brentford off. Brentford have obviously already pulled off some shock upsets this season at home. The Manchester United one will obviously ring a bell for everyone watching. So I do think this will be a much closer game than some would perhaps predict or anticipate. I do think Brentford get a goal as well. But I am going to back the away team. I think this is a very different Arsenal to what we saw last season. And I am going to go for a 3-1 prediction in this one. I do think Arsenal have got some goals behind them. And yeah, they're just going to keep continuing the good form we're seeing from them. I think this might be the last fixture. It feels like there's not been that many, but of course there is only 7 on. We're talking about Everton versus West Ham to finish off. And West Ham started the season very slowly, but you can kind of now see the cogs are starting to tick over. Things are starting to fall into place for West Ham, and I do expect them to start climbing the table. Of course, they come up against an Everton team which isn't losing games, but still yet to pick up their first Premier League win. I think at home against West Ham, they might see that as an opportunity to do so. Drawing 4 on the row, I do believe Everton have 4 on the bounce. It's something that they will need to correct. I mean, I guess if you draw every game, you're going to stay up this season, probably 38 points. But of course, that isn't going to happen. That's not going to materialise, is it? And of course, Everton fans and obviously Frank Lampard and just the whole Everton team will have much more better ambitions than just being in another relegation scrap. I think this is going to be a very good game. I think it could honestly go either way, but I'm going to go straight down the middle. I think I started my predictions with a draw. Might have been a 1-1 draw as well, and that's exactly how I'm going to finish the predictions as well. 1-1 draw, Everton, West Ham. And yes, I am correct. That is the predictions for this game week. Of course, we're seeing 3 fixtures be called off. Shame as well, really. A couple of them decent fixtures. Obviously, Brighton versus Palace, which is a derby, I guess. Leeds versus Manchester United. We know the history with that game. And of course, we won't get to see Graham Potter's Chelsea and what that might look like under the new reign. But guys, let me know your thoughts. Like me, has it messed up your fantasy team? What are you doing with that? Because I'm not too sure whether to play my wild card or not. And also, as usual, let me know your predictions. And please do hit that like button. Please do subscribe to the channel. And hopefully we'll catch you on the next week of predictions. Take care. Goodbye.